President Trump expecting to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping next week during his trip to Asia, hoping to strike a fair deal with Beijing, though he cast some doubt on the meeting at the White House Rose Garden lunch. Watch this.
Again, I have a great relationship with President Xi. I expect to be able to make a good deal with him, and I want him to make a good deal for China, but it's got to be fair. For years, they were making $500, $600, $700 billion. $700 billion, and we'd be making nothing. It was a one-sided, honestly, we built their military. We built China's military with the money that we lost for so many years getting ripped off. So now we're going to have a fair deal. I think we're going to have a very successful meeting. Certainly there are a lot of people that are waiting for it. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe it won't happen. Things can happen where, for instance, maybe somebody will say, I don't want to meet, it's too nasty. But it's really not nasty, it's just business.
So joining me now is Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, do you think that Xi Jinping is going to follow through and meet with President Trump?
I think it's 50-50. There are a lot of reasons for Xi Jinping not to meet President Trump. You know, in the past, Cheryl, Chinese leaders wouldn't meet an American president unless they were sure that they could announce a deal. Now, Xi Jinping is very different. He may want, for instance, to tank the U.S. stock market by not arriving at a deal and by issuing comments. The other thing is that we know that on Friday, when the Chinese Defense Ministry announced the removal of 9 senior flag officers, those were Xi Jinping loyalists, and no Xi Jinping adversary was sacked. So Xi Jinping very well may not be permitted to leave China, or he may decide that he doesn't want to leave China, given the intense infighting at the top of the Communist Party. I just don't know whether this meeting is going to go forward, and it's going to be a last-minute thing, I believe.
Why would he not be permitted to leave China?
Because his adversaries seem, at least for the moment, to have the upper hand. And they may not want him to go out and to be shown to the world as China's leader. And also, Xi Jinping may decide he doesn't want to leave because he may not be able to get back in. So there are a lot of motivations and factors going on right now. But we don't know the extent of the instability at the top of the regime. But, you know, Maria's been talking about this since February, and now it's coming to a head with the end of the 4th plenum. So at this point, we can see signs of instability. We don't know the extent of it, but we do know Xi Jinping is in trouble. And when a Chinese leader is in trouble, they often do not want to leave the center of power.
Yeah, and there's been, and she's brought this up as well, there's been reports about his health, but, you know, you can't confirm anything because it's happening within China, but that's obviously been the discussion is, you know, not just his hold on power in China, but also his physical health. The White House did confirm that President Trump is now possibly looking to restrict some exports of American-made software to China. Now, this is a response to China's new controls on rare earth minerals. And, of course, that sparked President Trump's rare earth agreement with Australia that we had earlier this week. The Chinese embassy did respond to the Australia deal, telling Fox Business the global industrial and supply chains came into shape as a result of the choices of the market and businesses. Countries with mineral resources need to play a positive role in keeping relevant industrial and supply chains safe and stable and to ensure normal trade and economic cooperation. So, you know, China's exports to the U.S. reached about $1 billion per day. But at the same time, and you mentioned this earlier, the threat is you withhold the rare earth minerals. The threat coming from China, you figure out a way to roil the stock market. They believe, it's been widely reported, that if they can affect the stock market, they can push President Trump. I don't know if that's possible. I don't think it is. But your reaction?
Well, you know, that statement that they issued to Fox Business is just ludicrous. I mean, they're the ones that are restricting the exports of rare earths, and not just to the United States, but to every other country, because those rules that they've issued this month, you know, clearly target every user of rare earths. And for them to say that, well, countries with rare earth supply should make sure that supply chains are kept resilient, that's just insane. And this shows you the problems in Beijing right now. Nobody can make a concession to the United States because they don't want to be held accountable later on. They're just, when the ground shifts, nobody wants to make a decision. And the problem for the United States when we talk about a trade deal with China, maybe we can reach one. President Trump is pretty good at this type of stuff. But the point is, China may not feel that it's in its interest to have any sort of constructive discussions. We've had a lot of problems with Beijing in those discussions up to now. And now the political system in Beijing is getting worse, and that means a trade deal is less likely.
Gordon, before you go, obviously, as we get ready for this trip for President Trump over to Asia next week, well, he leaves this week, North Korea launched multiple short-range ballistic missile tests on Wednesday. And this is, just days before President Trump is set to be there. Should we be concerned?
Well, the North Koreans need to test their short-range ballistic missiles, so they will continue to do this. But the timing, of course, I believe, is not coincidental. I think they wanted to make life difficult for President Trump, and North Koreans may have done that on the orders of Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping, or maybe even both. President Trump has tried to talk about some accommodation with North Korea. That would be great if he can do it. But at this point, Kim Jong-un has made it very clear that he's on Vladimir Putin's side. And so I think it would be extremely difficult for the United States to enter into any type of arrangement with Pyongyang.
Yeah, so obviously not to pursue or even try to have any kind of conversation between our leadership and Kim Jong-un is what you're saying, Gordon. Well, it's always great to have you on all of this. And obviously, we're going to be following the developments in Asia next week with the president. Thank you, Gordon.
Well, thank you, Cheryl.
All right. We'll be right back, everybody.